Om Sadhashivasamārambhām Vyāsaśaṅkaramadhyamām Asmadācāryaparyantāम् Vande Guruparamparaṁ Śrutismritipurāణānaṁ Ālayam Karuణālayam Namāmi Bhagavatpādam Shaṅkaram Lokashaṅkaram Shaṅkaram Shaṅkarācāryam Keshavam Bādarayanam Sutrabhāṣakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. So until the previous class, we were seeing how the wise person or the Atmavit is being talked about by Krishna, or the person who knows the Atma is being talked about. Now in this verse 31, Krishna elucidates the essential nature of the Atma. So here in this couple of lines, couple of sentences, he explains why the Atma is of nature of Nirgunaha, Akarta, Asangaha, Abhokta, and all these, and it has got no attributes. So because it doesn't have any attributes, it cannot perform any action. And because it can't perform any action, there is no punyam and papam associated to the Atma. So Atma is always pure. It is not tainted by anything what we do. So let's read the verse, then I will give you some examples from some other Upanishad, especially from the Mundaka Upanishad, which explains more about these aspects of this. Anaditvam nirgunatvat, anaditva nirgunatvat, paramatmayam avyayaha, paramatmayam avyayaha, anaditva nirgunatvat, paramatmayam avyayaha, sharirastopi kaunteya, sharirastopi kaunteya, nakaroti na lipyate, nakaroti na lipyate, anaditvat nirgunatvat, paramatmayam avyayaha, sharirastopi kaunteya, nakaroti na lipyate. So, nakaroti na lipyate. He kaunteya, he kunti putraha, Atma is of the nature of na karoti. That means it does not do any action, thereby na lipyate, so it doesn't get affected. So lipyate means getting affected, and na lipyate means that which is not affected by the actions, because action is not being performed by the Atma. And he gives a couple of examples here. He says this Atma is the nature of Anadi nature, Anaditvam. Or we say Anaditvam means the having the nature of Anadi. So Anadi means that which has got no beginning. It's called Anadi. Antamaha also means there is no end. So no na adihi na antamaha. So there is no beginning and there is no end for this Atma. Because Atma is continuous, it is always present in every living being and non-living being eternally. So all these Karana Shariram, the Sthula Shariram and Sukshma Shariram will go away. but the Atma which is present continues to exist irrespective of the Shariram being there or not. The consciousness need not manifest itself because it can remain as unmanifest for a very long period of time. Only when there is a need for it to manifest, it uses its own Maya Shakti or the power of Maya to manifest itself as Prakriti. In the case of the Jivaha, the consciousness or the Atma uses the power of Maya and using the three gunas or the Prakriti, it manifests itself as the Jivaha in this, all of us. So, for the individual, for the Jivas, the path for manifestation is through Prakriti. Because Prakriti is the one which has got the gunas. So, because we are all governed by the gunas, we are conditioned by gunas. So, we have Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, Tamo Guna. And these gunas are something which is already ordained. So, when we have Sattva Guna, we perform good actions. When we have Tamo Guna, we perform very not any action or sometimes are very sleepy also. Then Rajo Guna, what does it do? It makes us run here and there, do actions. It's energetic. So when somebody has got energy, you can say he or she has got a lot of Rajo Guna. So what it does is, it makes a person expend energy. Because energy is something which you cannot contain. If you have a lot of energy within your body, you cannot just sit there and do nothing. So the energy has to be expended. So that is what the hidden energy which is there is the Rajo Gunaha, makes you do the activities, and in the process of doing the activities as the Ahankara, as the doer itself, one gets the Punyam and Papam. So we saw elaborately in the afternoon class, some of you were there, in the Vishesha Apoha Prakaranam in the Sahasri, where we talked about the two types of knowers, the Ahankara as knower number 1 and Atma as knower number 2. So always there are two knowers and Ahankara is a primary knower. So when you perform the action as the Ahankara, then you get associated with all the afflictions. So lipyate. So karoti lipyate. So for the jiva, it is karoti lipyate. So when the Brahman or the Atma uses the power of Maya to manifest itself through the Prakriti, which is conditioned by the three gunas. Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, Tamo Guna. So we all of us has got this. And the Prakriti also has got the same gunas. So thereby we are conditioned, we are limited by these three gunas. But when any Avatara Purusha is born, like say Lord Rama is born or Lord Krishna is born, they are not born through the process of Prakriti. They are not conditioned by any gunas. They are born through their own will, called Ichcha Shakti. So they are directly born through the power of Maya and they bypass the gunas. The distinction between two types of births. So we cannot compare ourselves to the Avatara Purusha, because Avatara Purusha is not governed by the gunas. They are not a product of Prakriti. We are a product of Prakriti, and that is why we are limited in nature. Whereas the Avatara Purusha, they are not governed by any of these limitations. So they are directly manifested through the power of Maya, through their own will. So whenever they want to come, when dharma is not followed, or when adharma is so vast and rampant, at the time they come. Sambhavami yuge yuge. So yada yada hi dharmasya glanid bhavati bharata. Abhyudhanam adharmasya. So whenever adharma is increasing, at that time to protect paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya chatushkritam. Correct. And dharma samstapanaha. So for establishing dharma only, sambhavami yuge yuge. So I will come. This is Krishna's word. And he says that all the avatara purushaha, they will come when the time is right for them. They will not just come because we want to ask them to come. That when the time itself is, the pressure is so high for them that it will create a force. And through the force of itself, the avatar is born. In fact, in the Chandogya Upanishad, there's elaborate creation talk about even the creation of the child also. So there's enormous pressure on the Prakriti itself for the manifestation of the jivas. So this discussed elaborately in the Chandogya Upanishad, which we'll see very later, much later in the class. But all of them, they are cyclical. They are already ordained. Nobody is sitting there and creating anything new. The whole system has been done such a way that all of them are acting upon each other and everything is converging together to create that pressure. And through the pressure of this whole thing, the manifestation comes into existence. So the same way here also, the adharma or the activities which are performed by so many things to restore the law and order, to restore the way it's supposed to function, they will come in whichever form. It can come, need not be in a particular form. It can come in a particular, phenomenon called famine. It can be tidal wave. It can be tsunami. It can be lightning, bushfire. It can be COVID also is another example, the recent one. So by this, even if you see now, whatever people were doing in the olden days, 20 years ago, they are doing the same thing now. They are not going out anywhere. They are not eating out anywhere. They are not socializing out anywhere. So it is the same scenario what has happened many years ago. And there's a self-restriction, right? Self-isolation. So you are cut off from the society. You feel very bad about it, but you cannot do anything about it. And gradually you'll get used to it. You will just live with your own people. Handful of people will be there. And that's how the life is going to be. It is never going to change. It is not going to go back to the old self, where you think it will improve, and it is only going to be like this, and maybe a little bit more worse as you go along. Because dharma in the Kali Yuga is going to be floated again and again. There will always be new things coming out, and new people try to break this cycle. Because somebody will not like this way of lifestyle. So they will try something new, which will again disturb the ecological system. And when that is broken, there will be another law, another type of thing will come, which will put pressure on this. So it is all going to be, if you don't accept the Bhagavan's dharma, if you do not accept the Bhagavan's ordained laws of nature, then it is going to have some repercussions. That is what it says here, that all these things which are talked about here, it is for the person who believes in the action. So all punyam, papam, etc. is for the person who has got the attitude of ahankara as a doer. But Atma, he talks about here, as the one which has got anadihi, anaditvam. So anaditvam means it doesn't have any beginning. And nirgunatva. So I told you just about now, Atma doesn't have any guna. So Atma is not governed by Prakriti. Okay. The same Atma has got two branches. Same Atma, when with the power of Maya gets manifested using Prakriti, all the living beings come to existence. So they come with the gunas. The same Atma, when it wants to manifest itself as the Avatara Purushaha, it uses the power of Maya, devoid of the gunas, and it manifests itself as the Avatara Purushaha. And because they are governed by Maya, they have Maya Shakti within them. Because when somebody manifests itself, as its own Shakti, then the person has got extreme control over how he should run this particular organization, run this particular universe, or run this particular, prapancha, and when he should go also. Like if you look at the story of Rama also, Rama came out of his own willpower. He was born into a family of a kingly family, and he went undergo all these things against for his own will. Even Sita also was born as Shakti. So they both knew the role to be done in the particular era. Because the adharma in the form of Ravana, Asuras, etc. was increasing. So to restrict all these things and to put the system back in order and to re-establish dharma and give an example for how to lead the life was what was introduced. Same Krishna also, when he came at an era when it was probably okay initially. But later on, as we started seeing that the adharma was floated very, very increasing a lot. And he also knew that, if he takes a law or if he takes something in his hands, there is going to be some repercussions. So when Gandhari said that, your whole Yadukulaha will be destroyed, it was his own wish that it was to be destroyed. It is not because Gandhari gave him a wish or Gandhari cursed him that Krishna decided to impact. No, it was his own wish, Bhagavan's wish, that he had to go. And it appeared in the form of Gandhari's thoughts, nothing else. So his own thought, his own Maya power made Gandhari think that way and then utter that curse. And it said that because of her, the Krishna Yadukula got destroyed. In reality, it is Bhagavan's wish. His own wish that he has done his job. And the next yuga is going to come. And for that, he should not be there in that environment. It is not going to it's not going to be any different. So it needs some other treatment. Correct. So in that particular yuga, Krishna was the right ideal solution and he was the right person. In the Treta Yuga, Rama was the right person and Rama was born. Right. So all of them, in the particular era, they will be born according to what is requirement there. But here it says here what? Nirgunatva Paramatma Mayam. So Paramatma, when you say Avyayaha, I am Avyayaha, means that which is imperishable. So he uses three words. Paramatma, Avyayaha, means imperishable. Then Anadihi, then Nirgunatvat. So there are four ways of describing this. Actually, Atma doesn't have any words. But the way it is explained here is that you have to use that word to understand what is not that. So when you say Anadi, it means no beginning. You are asked, okay, what else has got beginning? Body has got a beginning. Plant has got a beginning. Mountain has got a beginning. River has got a beginning. So all of the objects which are there, including the mind also, has got a beginning. Because we start in the morning with thoughts. And when you go to sleep, there are no more thoughts. So it has got an end also. So all of this has got a beginning and an end. But the consciousness doesn't have the beginning and end also. So you should use that example to negate what it is not. Then you arrive at what is Anadi. Correct? Same way, Nirgunatvat, when you say, Nirgunaha means what? It has got no gunas. So we have got guna, sattva guna, rajo guna, tamo guna. And in every food which we eat also there is gunas. So the food which we eat also is governed by the gunas, which we are going to see elaborately. Next chapter is going to be only guna vibhagaha. So he's going to talk elaborately only about guna, how this guna affects the creation and how it affects the person also. Then subsequent chapters talks about the food. So he introduces here a topic called Nirgunatvat, means the one which has got no gunaha. So you use that example to understand what is anatma. So from there you arrive at the atma. Same way paramatma, another word. So paramatma means that atma which is of the nature of paraha, that which is beyond everything is called paramatma. And avyayaha means that which is imperishable. Imperishable is called avyayaha. So then Sharirasthaha api, even though obtaining in the body, so this atma is appearing is in the body itself. It is not something outside of the body. See, the atma is very much present, is integral part of it. But yet it is distinct from the physical body, but not distant from the physical body. So Shariraha asti api, even though it is present in the physical body, it is not affected. Na karoti, na lipyate. So even though it is present in the physical body, it is not affected. It is untainted by anything which is happening in the physical body. So if you do not take bath in a day, or if you, atma is not going to become unclean. The physical body will smell after a couple of days. But the atma, the consciousness inside us, is not going to be affected because it is not affected by anything. It doesn't have any limbs. So this is the concept. The same way in the Mundaka Upanishad, in mantra number 6, Pratama Khandaha, Mundakaha, Pratama Mundakaha, Pratama Khandaha. He talks about some attributes which I want to give it to you, so you can write it down. Yat Adrishyam. Adrishyam. So first is Adrishyam. Then Agrahyam. Adrishyam, Agrahyam, Agotram, Avarnam, Apanipadam, Apanipadam, Vibhum, Sarvagatham, Susukshmam, Susukshmam, Avyayam, Sarva Bhuta Yonihi. Sarva Bhuta Yonihi. So we saw in this Atma 31 is given Anaditvam, Nirgunatvat, Paramatma, Avyayaha. Then in the Mundaka Upanishad we saw Adrishyam, Agrahyam, Agotram, Avarnam, Apanipadam, Vibhum, Sarvagatham, Susukshmam, Sarvabhuta Yonihi. So what do all these things mean? So understand this, we need to know what it means. So Adrishyam. See, Drishyam means seen. And Adrishyam means that which cannot be seen. You cannot see the Atma. You cannot visualize how the Atma looks like. But you can visualize your arm. You can see your arm. You can see your eyes through the mirror. You cannot see your own eyes directly, but your eyes can be seen by somebody else and tell you that your eyes look good, not good. Or you can also use a mirror to reflect or to understand what your eyes look like. So it is always possible. But you cannot use the mirror to see the Atma, how it looks like. Because Atma is something not perceptible for eyes, normal eyes. It is not an object to be seen. That's why it's called Adrishyam. Then Agrahyam. So Grahyam means to grasp, to hold. So you can hold your nose, you can hold your ears, you can hold your tongue, you can hold hair, hold your arm, hold your leg. You can hold pretty much anything which is possible in your physical body. You can hold your breath also. So they're all grahyam. But you cannot hold the Atma, the consciousness, because it is beyond grasp. So whatever you are grasping, whatever you are trying to grasp is within the realm of matter only. See, this is where Bhagavad Gita can be interesting. Sometimes the Krishna just gives very, very high definition of all these things. But indirectly is actually quantifying that Atma is of this nature. So Agrahyam. Then it has got no Agotram. So it has got no Gotraha. So we all have Gotraha, right? So Bharadwaja Gotraha, Vadula Gotraha, Kaushika, all Gotrams are there. And the Gotram denotes a lineage from the Rishi. So the Rishi, Bharadwaja Rishi, he, right, Kaundinya Gotraha, Kaundinya Rishi, he, all of them, they are Gotras. And the Gotra indicates from which lineage you come from. And the lineage itself is the Rishi. So you can identify a particular Rishi, you can read about a particular Rishi, and you can say that I am of this particular lineage. So you become restricted by the lineage. And there are variety of lineage. So if you are a male, we have the lineage. And the female has got her own lineage also before getting married. But after getting married, the female actually is called by the lineage of the householder or the Yajman. So no longer the Gotram is applicable for, she cannot quote the old Gotram because the old Gotram is not applicable anymore for this. So there is a change of Gotraha from when the woman gets married to a male. So the woman now has got the fame, and because the lineage is through the propagation of the child, the Vamsha Vriddhi is done for the male, for the family, correct? And that is how the propagation continues. That's why the women leave the house and they go and live with the husband for propagating dharma or propagating lineage of the person. So this is a standard thing. Now, there are some people who do not have any Gotram at all. Like they don't know what Gotram is. I've seen this. Some people ask, what is a Gotram? I don't know what my Gotram is. Especially when you get married intercaste. Supposing you are a Brahmana and you get married to somebody who is a non-Brahmin or somebody who doesn't have any Gotram at all. So in such a case, what will you do? You have to still get married, you still have to do, the Vadhyar has to do something. So in such a case, when no Gotram is available, Agotram is not Atma. Agotram for the person. Because the person who doesn't have a Gotram because he doesn't know what Gotram is. That's very clear. Because he or she has not been told by the person before, not educated by the Gotram before, you do not know. No rituals have been done before. So in such a case, they call Gotram Milya, Gotram, Vishnu Gotram. So they chant the mantra and they say Vishnu Gotraha. That is, the Bhagavan's Gotram is Vishnu Gotraha. So when there is no Gotra available, they give you Vishnu Gotra. Don't ask me why Shiva Gotra is not given, because Shiva is unmanifest. Okay, so Shiva is Samahara Murti, and Vishnu is the Vyavahara Murti or the transactional Murti. Vishnu is for enjoyment or for manifestation. So Vishnu Gotra is given because for them to continue to live. So that is why. But here, Agotram, when you talk about, not that Agotram. Agotram here means it has got no Gotram at all. Because it doesn't have to do any karmas. It doesn't need to have, see, Gotram is required when you require is when you do karmas. So they'll ask you which Gotram you are there, depending on that particular Gotram, then certain karmas have to be done and certain lineage has to be followed. Okay. And if you are Sagotraha, you cannot get married also. You know that, right? So if you got Sagotram means when you got the same Gotraha, you cannot get married in the same Gotra. Because they are called Sagotra means they are brothers and sisters. So if you are Bharadwaja Gotraha and your other person also is Bharadwaja Gotra, the friend, and they have a son and a daughter. You have a son, he has got a daughter. You cannot get them married because they're supposed to be in the same Gotra, same lineage. That is what Shastram says. It's a different thing when when something's happening, because there are genetical defects, but defects can happen if you get married in Sagotraha. So it is not recommended to marry the same Gotra. That's why people look for other Gotra. Okay. It is because this is why they have. See, in the Kali Yuga, these things will not be followed. Because everybody is after whatever is available, they will just take it. So Agotraha, correct? So Agotram. Then Avarnam. So Varnam means color or a particular form. So Varnam talks about color. It doesn't have any color. So there's something called blue Krishna or Pitambara Krishna. All these things are not there. So there is no color. Color is only applicable for something which is an object of knowledge. But where there is nothing to be painted, there is no object at all there. What color will apply? So it's called Avarnaha. So what we must do is use this example, Adrishyam. So when you say Adrishyam, what it means is you say, oh, is the object Drishyam? It is not the Atma. So it's not this. Okay. So you have to just dismiss one by one, saying that. Okay. So it is Drishyam means it is an object of knowledge. It is Mithya. Same way, Agrahyam, when I am able to touch something, feel something, paint something, feel or control anything, it means it is an object of knowledge, not there. So you just negate. So use the example to remove. And when you remove those things, what is left out is the Atma. So the author uses that example for us to first use this example, these methods, these definitions to validate what is Anatma. So once you know what is Anatma, then you stumble across Atma automatically. You do not need to do anything great about it. You do not need to search for the Atma. Using the examples given here, using the definition given here, you apply the logic to say that is this attribute available to this? If it's yes, then that is not this. Remove that. Take second aspect, apply that. If it qualifies an object, remove that. So that is how one arrives at the Atma step by step, removing all these things. So here, we saw Agotram, Avarnam. Then Apani Padam. So Pani Padaha means arms and legs. So Apani Padam means what? That which has got no Panihi, no arms and no legs. So Chakra Panihi, when you say Kodanda Pani. So Kodandaha. So along with that, Kodanda Pani is Rama. Kodanda Pani. Kodanda Raman. Chakra Pani. So the one who has got chakra in his hand, Chakra Pani. Kodanda Pani. Dandapani, Murugan, right? So all, when you say Dandapani, means Dandam means the stick or the veil which has got is Panihi. So he's got veil in his hands. So all of them are Panihi and Padaham. So there's no Padam also for this. There's no feet. So Apani Padam. Then Nityam. Nityam means always existent. Always. It is never ever disappearing or moving away from you at all. Because it is not, this is called Achyutaha also. So Nityam also means Achyutaha. Means Chutaha means that which slips away. See, Achyutaya Namaha, Anantaya Namaha, Govindaya Namaha. I think you know that, right? So the three mantras, Achyutaya Namaha, Anantaya Namaha, Govindaya Namaha. So Achyutaha means that which doesn't slip away from you is called Achyutaha. So Nityam also means available always for recognition, always available as the Swarupam or the Atma, always available. So Nityam. Then Vibhum, that which is of the nature of the entire cosmos that pervades everything, called Vibhum. Then Sarvagatam. So Vibhum, Sarvagatam, they denote the same definition. Only thing Vibhum says about the magnanimity or the vastness of this Atma. And Sarvagatam means that pervades everything. Sarvagatam. Then Sukshvam. So Sukshvam means what? Very, very subtle. See, Sukshvam Mitval means Sukshma Rupaha means very subtle, you cannot, very, very subtle. So Sukshvam means it is very, very subtle for someone to even comprehend what it is. Sukshmam. Then Sarva Bhuta Yonihi. See, Yonihi means the origin or the cause. Or cause for what? Sarva Bhutaha. All the beings that are coming from there is called Sarva Bhuta Yonihi. The cause for everything is this Bhagavan or this Atma consciousness, from which everything comes into existence and everything also goes back into resolution. So these are the implied meaning of the word Anaditvam Nirgunatvat Paramatma Avyayaha. So then all the definitions I gave you from the Mundaka Upanishad. So even all these things are present in the Sharirastaha api Kaunteya na karoti lipyate. So even despite being present as the very essence in everything, any action which you do is not affected or doesn't affect the Atma, na karoti, because it is the akarta. And thereby being akarta, not a doer, it doesn't get affected by anything. It doesn't have any punyam and papa. Is that clear? Okay. Then he gives another example in verse number 32. He gives example of space, akashaha. Yata sarvagadam saukshyat, yata sarvagadam saukshmyat, akasham nopalipyate, akasham nopalipyate, sarvatravastito dehe, sarvatravastito dehe, tathatmanopalipyate, tathatmanopalipyate. So, yatha, just as Sarvagatam, see the word Sarvagatam has come here, which was in the Upanishad. It was not there before. So, Sarvagatam is all-pervading nature. So, what is all-pervading? This Akashaha, which is of the nature of Sukshmat, Sukshmyat. So, Saukshmyat is Sukshmaha, subtle. So, being the nature of very subtle, the space is of very subtle nature. Space cannot be touched. Space cannot be cut. Space cannot be made wet. Rain, when it falls also, space will not get affected. You cannot call it a wet space. We call wet space different thing. Dry space different thing. Because the space itself is conditioned by our own upadhis. Right? So when you have a open space, when you buy a land, you just call it as a land, right? Open space. So you bought one land, so many square feet of land. And if you go and show somebody, what will you say? Oh, it's an open land. And you only see space there. Do you see anything there? You do not see anything there. But when you start constructing your building there, your house there, then slowly the structure seems to take the shape of the space. So now, the space which was open before is now engulfed in the different rooms and the structure which is there, correct? So it is now governed, is conditioned by those upadhis. Thereby now it gets a new name called bedroom space, living room space, etc. So it gets a new name associated with the upadhi it is taken. Upadhi means the manifesting medium. So the manifesting medium is what? Those buildings and structures which are there, correct? Hope you are following. Now, when the building is demolished, what happens to the space? The space was already existing, is now gone back to again much space. Correct? So space was there before. Space was there even after the building was constructed. Space also was there in the same position as it was after demolition also. So space continues to exist irrespective of the manifesting medium. That is why it's called Sarvagatam. It pervades everything. Sarvagatam, right? And when you construct any building or anything in the space, does the space get tainted? It doesn't get tainted, right? Space does not get tainted. Space doesn't get affected by this. So it says, just as the Akashaha is very, very subtle, na lipyate. So it says it also doesn't get affected by any of the attributes of space. Okay. Then sarvatraha avastitaha means sarvatraha means in all, and avastitaha means abiding or residing in everything. Dehe tata atma na lipyate. So the example given is, the previous example he gave a lot of other examples like agotra, pani, padam, etc., which you saw. Then now here he uses the example of space, saying just as space also is something pervading like the atma, which is subtle. So whatever you do to space, it doesn't get tainted, doesn't get cut, it doesn't get dried, and it doesn't get affected by whatever you do there. Because you are constructing in space, you are living in space, and when you demolish, you also go back in space. So space absorbs everything. That's why it's called the subtlest of the creation. But space also is one of the Panchabhutaha. See, this is the beauty of it. See, space also is negated in the Vedanta Shastram by saying space also is Mithya, which the Buddhists cannot accept, because how can you negate space is a question. For them, space is the Satyam. And for them, Brahman is the other way around. For them, Brahman is something which is different from space. And it is something to be understood separately. Well, what Shastram says, that space also is one of the 5 elements. Akashat Vayuhu Vayoragnihi Agnirapaha Adya Prithvi Oshadayaha. So in Taittiriya Upanishad, there's a clear order. Akashat Vayuhu Vayoragnihi Agnirapaha Adya Prithvi Prithvya Oshadayaha. So it's a particular order. So Akasha first creates, then Vayu comes after that, because Vayu moves in space. Right? Then after Vayu, Agni comes. Agni, then water. Then water to Prithvi. Then Prithvi, all the Oshadayaha, all the plants, etc. come into existence. The plants are now become the Annam for the Purushaha, for the people. Correct? So that is how this Srishti is structured. Same here also it says here that Sarvatra Avastitaha. So this Atma is present in all of them. He gives example of only one space. But the Atma being present in every creation elements, the elements and the elementals. Elements and the elementals. And how is it? Dehe means it is present in the Dehi or in the body, physical body. As what? Tata Atma. That Atma, as present as the Atma, thereby it is not affected by na lipyate. So even though it is present in the Atma, and it gives example of space. So the space being present, you are constructing the house doesn't affect in any way the space at all. You are not cutting space at all. You are only temporarily creating a space, a blockage of space. But when you open everything else, space moves around freely. You only have a feeling that I am blocking space, but you really don't block anything because space is all pervading nature. This is a simple understanding. Once you understand this philosophy behind this, then it's easy to accept things as they are. So, Yata Sarvagadam Saukshmyat Akasham Nopalipyate Sarvatravastito Dehe Tathatmanopalipyate. So in verse 33, he now gives one more example. He just illustrates, goes on to illustrate how the Atma is different or how the only one Atma is there. So, Yata Prakashyat Ekaha Yata Prakashayat Ekaha Kritstam Lokamimam Ravihi Kritstam Lokamimam Ravihi Yata Prakashayat Ekaha Kritstam Lokamimam Ravihi Kshetram Kshetri Tata Krishnam Kshetram Kshetri Tata Krishnam Prakashayati Bharata Prakashayati Bharata Yata Prakashayat Ekaha Kritstam Lokamimam Ravihi Kshetram Kshetri Tata Krishnam Prakashayati Bharata. So, hey Bharataha or hey Arjuna here, Yatha, just as. Yatha means just as. Lokam imam ravihi. So in this lokaha, imam, the entire ravihi means sun. So ekaha, and how is Ravi? Ekaha ravihi. So it is not many suns. Ekaha ravihi, ekaha one sun. So Eka ravihi imam kritsnam lokam. So kritsnam means illumines. Kritsnam means illumines or shines. So imam kritsnam lokam means in this entire loka, this one ravi, one sun shines. The entire world. Okay. Prakashayati ekaha, being one, it illumines the entire thing. It doesn't multiply itself as many depending upon the world. Example, if you keep 10 pots of water, clear water, under the sun, during midnight sun, the sun will appear in 10 different pots as small sun. Does the sun do anything to multiply itself as 10 suns? It doesn't. Sun being one, it illumines the entire universe and it takes the form of the upadhi. So if you have only one pot, only one sun will be there. If you have 100 pots, 100 sun will be there. But we cannot assume that 100 suns, the sun multiplies itself by 100 or 1000 to reflect itself. Just as we have netraha, eye, and the netram itself, eye can see multiple objects at the same time. It can see the tree, it can see beyond the leaves, see the the fruits, the birds in the tree, the roots, the branches, the color, everything it can see, being one. Right? So Pashyen Lochana Mekada. Right? So Pashyen Lochana Mekada is from Dirdish Viveka. So the eye being one, it doesn't multiply itself into 20 different eyes to see 20 objects. Eye being one, it has the power, the capacity to see multiple things and understand same things. Same way, the sun also as being one is capable of illumining all the objects in the universe remaining one. So Nana Vidhani Rupani Pashyen Lochana Nekada. So Nana Vidhani Rupani means what? Nana Vidham means many varieties of Rupani. The eye Pashyen Lochana Nekada. So eye sees different forms and different colors and different things by remaining one. The same way, the sun being one. See, Ekaha Imam Ravihi Kristam Lokam Imam. So the Ravi, sun being one, just by remaining one, it is able to illumine the entire universe. Just as Kshetram Kshetri. So this chapter is called what? Kshetram Kshetra Vibhaga Yoga. So just as the Kshetram and Kshetri is only one and Kshetram is many. So Kshetram is illuminated and Kshetri being one. Right. So Tata Kritsram. So just as the Kshetragyaha in the physical body is only one and it illumines being one multiple objects of knowledge. By remaining one, it is able to illumine the eyes, illumine the sense of touch, the power of the sense of taste, sense of smelling, hearing, etc. It does not multiply itself into 5 different things. It's called Kshetragyaha. So the same example is now coming back to the topic here, saying that it's concluding or almost come to the conclusion, saying that Yata Prakashayat Ekaha Krishnam Lokam Imam Ravihi. Tata Kshetram Kshetri Krishnam Prakashayati. In the same way, the Kshetragya being one is the one which illumines everything and Prakashayati Bharataha. So in the same way, this also illumines the entire Kshetram also. So he has come from space, Atma, etc. He has come back to the same topic of Kshetram Kshetragya. So understand that the Kshetram also is like this. So you do not need to go and look for Atma outside of you. The क्षेत्र क्षेत्रतयोर एवं अंतरम ज्ञान चक्षुषा अंतरम ज्ञान चक्षुषा क्षेत्र क्षेत्रतयोर एवं क्षेत्र क्षेत्र ज्ञानयोर एवं अंतरम ज्ञान चक्षुषा भूत प्रकृति मोक्षं च भूत प्रकृति मोक्षं च ये विदुर्यान्ति ते परम ये विदुर्यान्ति ते परम. So क्षेत्रम क्षेत्रः ज्ञानयोर एवं. So only by understanding the knowledge gained by kshetram and kshetrajñah, by knowing the difference between what is kshetram and kshetrajñah, evam, in this, only in this manner. And how do you have to see through jnana chakshusha. You cannot see through the physical eyes. You have to use the jnanam. Jnana kangalal paakadam. So jnana kangalal. Using the jnana kan, you have to, or the jnana, eyes of the knowledge, you have to see this. You cannot see this with plain eyes. So one has to have knowledge of the kshetram and kshetrajñah. Then bhuta prakriti moksham cha. So freedom from prakriti. So freedom from prakriti. Bhuta prakriti moksham cha. Right. And when they understand this, those people, viduhu means those people, wise people, yanti te param. Yanti means they travel or they reach that ultimate paramatma beyond which there is no travel required. You do not need to go anywhere. So viduhu means vidhur. When say vidur means a wise person, a knowledgeable person. In the Mahabharata also vidur was there. Vidura niti is there. So vidur means a person who is a wise person who knows the truth. Such a person who has got knowledge, he crosses the bhuta prakriti moksham. So bhuta prakriti means what? He goes beyond the prakriti, beyond prakriti. As I told you, the jiva is a product of prakriti, correct? The avatara purusha is not a product of prakriti, but they are from the maya. So both of them, when they go back to the same source. So the avatara purusha transcends maya, goes back to Brahman. The jiva also, when it understands the truth of one's own self, it transcends prakriti, and because the prakriti is none other than maya's own product, it also achieves the same result. So yanti te param. So both the people go to the same destination. So avatara purusha also goes back to Brahman. The jiva also, through the knowledge gained through the kshetram kshetrajñah, also goes to same Brahman. And yanti te param. Right? So kshetram kshetrajñayor and antaram. Antaram means difference. Right? So one has to know the antaram between the two. The distinction between the two. For such a person, through jnana chakshuhu, a person sees eyes of wisdom. Such a person gets freedom from this prakriti and he becomes or reaches the abode of the Parama. He becomes eternal or is not reborn. So rebirth is only a cognitive thing, it is for the physical body. Because rebirth is not for the Atma, and the person says, Aham Brahma. Aham Brahma means I am the Brahman. So when you say I am Brahman, then it means that you understand what is Brahman and you claim ownership that I am that Brahman. You do not say I know that Brahman. When you know Brahman, what do you say? You say I am Brahman. You do not say I know that Brahman. So when you say I know Brahman, it means Brahman also becomes an object of knowledge. So there's no freedom for you. So you'll have to still be existing to resolve it. So when you say I am the Brahman, it means knowledge of the Brahman also resolved in Brahman itself. So there is no more thing to be learned, no more thing to be assimilated, no more thing to be discovered, because when you're one with Brahman or the consciousness, there's nothing else to be there. That's why you do not need to work very hard. Really speaking, people work very hard for this. See, Shastram Padichale, it takes so much time, so many things to study, so many Upanishads to study, so many hours I have to do this, so many texts I have to by heart. My God, it is impossible. Actually, Shastram says what? It is very easy. You do not need to do anything. You have to just let go of the Ahankara and you have to understand what Ahankara is. Resolve the Ahankara, then it is. Adha Mudila Sarabhava. How it is possible? I am not able to do that. That is why Shastra studies there. That is why Vedam teachers are still existing. Teachers are still there. And the tradition is still continuing because it is not something you can achieve overnight. It is not something you can read from a book on your own self. Take a book of Tattva Bodha, Atma Bodha, or something, Bhagavad Gita, and just say you can read on your own. On the face of it, you find that it is very interesting. Yes, correct. But there's one person who put an objection, somebody will say, then you will not have answer to reply to the person. In fact, one of the texts, which we'll see next class in the Sahasri, there one of the students, after listening to all these things, there's a Purva Paksha gets up. See, Aham Brahmasmi concept is established. Aham Brahmasmi concept is established. That is, you are the Brahman, I am the Brahman is established. But this person says that, why do you say Aham Brahmasmi when Aham is also an object of knowledge? So Aham, when you say here, means me, right? Aham, Aham, Aham. So when you say, it means what? Why do you say Aham Brahmasmi when, why is the Mahavakyam? This is a question asked. You have come to this point where you have understood the Aham Brahmasmi, correct? The Mahavakyam is there. You have understood everything and you have been explaining the teacher very clearly. Now when Purva Paksha gets up suddenly from somewhere else, he will come and ask you. You say Aham Brahmasmi, but Aham also is, why do you call Aham Brahmasmi? Why can't you call yourself Brahma? See this. So the teacher has to explain, or they have to explain from which standpoint you're talking about. So he explains later on saying that initially when I started studying, I had Ahankara. So when I had Ahankara, I had the concept of Aham Brahmasmi. And if you don't have the Ahankara, I cannot study. Because if you don't have the Ahankara, there's nothing required to study. Because you have Ahankara, only you study. And the teacher also has got Ahankara, that's why he is teaching. See, if I don't have the intention to teach at all, if I say that I am Brahman, I can just keep quiet, not do anything. So there is Ahankara also in a person, and that is why teaching is possible. It is also possible to speak. It is also possible to see. If you say, I don't have Ahankara, it is not acceptable. So the Acharya says here that I was starting on a starting plane with this, and I have been traveling on this path for such a long time. And now I have come to a stage when I have resolved all of the differences, and I just say Aham Brahmasmi. It doesn't mean that I am really that. I am Brahma. Aham Brahma. So I am Brahma. So this is how the Purva Paksha also asks. See, a strange question. See how people pick on words. These people are all studied people. They are not like ordinary people. Namak strike agade. But after studying, culmination of all the study, etc., one guy will ask you a question. And all your study will be all torn to pieces. Oh, in the question 3 ways, the answer is 3. It was never discussed. So, Aham Brahmasmi, I am not Aham Brahmasmi. No, you are not. How do you prove to him? How do you prove? Either you have to accept defeat saying that you are not, or you go back to the teacher and ask the question, study again. That is why the repeated study of this Shastram is required, because these doubts keep coming. And it can come from any corner of the person. See, this doubt can come from somebody who is not studied at all. They will just ask random any question. They will throw some challenges at you and you will think it is correct also. Because your knowledge is not fully assimilated. So at that time, everything, what you see, So it is very important for you to have the clarity. That is why Krishna keeps saying again and again. Here is very, very political. He is very, very polished. He just gives, go to the Upanishad, cut and dry. There's no biting. This is straight. It will put you down from such a height straight to down straight away itself. That is why Upanishad we don't teach in the beginning. Because Upanishad teaching is actually very terse and very, very, demanding sometimes. It can sometimes challenge your thoughts so drastically that it can sometimes put you off track. So you have to introduce slowly. Slowly only, like when the plane takes off, right? Suddenly, if you just take off like that, like I remember once I went to New Zealand in Air India plane. I never travel again with Air India. There's a guy next to me sitting there, and he was sitting with me, and suddenly all of us were really, all the feet were up in the air. We thought we are actually going in the other direction because his takeoff was so steep. The guy next to me was starting to pray already. My God, I think I'm not going to go. He's already starting to, because see, normally when the plane, if you go to Singapore Airlines or etc., right, any plane, you will not see the takeoff at all. You will not even see that you actually come to 30,000. So you will go gradually. They will just climb like this and just go. Right? This person go straight like that. So all the books etc. they just start falling on your head. Everybody in the plane. And I traveled after 11 years, only once. And this incident happened. After that, it's almost, now I have not traveled for the last so many years. So it's not, I'm not blaming. What I'm trying to tell is when you take off like that, suddenly, right? When your knowledge takes off, sometimes you just don't know where your feet and head are. So you have to do gradually. So that is why the Sampradaya method of teaching, what it does is, it does not lead you into uncharted territories just like that. It doesn't leave you like just okay, forget about it. It takes you systematically. Okay, the Padingo, you follow this, follow this, follow this. So you must not stop only at this, because if you stop only at this, then you would not have understood the whole concept behind everything else. Because each of the texts, the Prasthanatrayam, talks about only certain aspects of it. It doesn't go detail. So Bhagavad Gita is not detailed text. It's only a text which illustrates some aspects of life. Right? But there are other texts which are there, which are more profound, more detailed, and more exhaustive, which you also need to study to get the full understanding of everything else. That is why somebody will say, I studied 3 years Bhagavad Gita, so you will have half-cooked knowledge. It's like going to a degree and spending 1 year degree course or something, 3 year degree course you've got. When you have to finish in 6 years time, and you say, the Padichamuttam Boram Otidla, you will never be able to be, qualified person, 100% level. So you need to complete the whole thing. It may take time, but you will come out, in flying colors. So that's what Shastram does to you. It just takes you slowly, step by step, judging your strength, your resilience, and seeing whether you're capable and giving you small doses. So 1 hour becomes 1.5 hours, 1.5 becomes 2 hours, slowly it increases and then you will be able to concentrate for a longer time. Hope you got it right. So with this, we have concluded chapter number 13. So the next class, I'm going to summarize 13, the key verses. Then we go to chapter 14. We start chapter 14. Okay. Any questions from today's class? Anyone has got any questions at all? All clear? Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Tatsat Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Namaste. Shubhratri.